was coming home the other day and listening to the radio, my music, and getting a little like, they're going to disturb my great station. I think it was 101.1 at the time, which I really happened to love. It's like, because now they're going to give us little words of wisdom that these announcers, whatever you want to say, interject into the music. Better than some commercials, though, I have to say that. And they were talking about happiness and the things that they found that give people a boost and bring happiness. And we've talked about happiness before. I think I've even talked about happiness and joy. And again, this could be repetitive, but maybe it's just a different take on how we all find our happiness or what gives us happiness. So this little talk on the radio was about where they find that taking pictures of people doing simple things, loved ones, friends, families, whatever of your family. And it might be as simple as taking a picture of somebody that you know walking their dog, or somebody doing like the raking of the leaves. Those pictures in the home are actually more meaningful and more heartfelt than the person who's traveled to the Taj Mahal and has that picture. And I already have the head nod in the back. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. So better than that picture of the Taj Mahal or the Eiffel Tower, it's the connection to people and that everyday task of watching them do something that brings them joy. Walking the dog brings them joy. Not always when you're rushing to work, but most of the time brings you joy. Seeing somebody do a simple task and maybe a little baby, a new grandchild or whatever is out in those leaves, that is what brings people joy. So that was interesting because a lot of times, I have a lot of pictures in my home in my Florida home, especially of family. And that's always been meaningful to Ken and I. And years ago when they were in the Oakland house, I remember our daughter going, why do you need all these pictures here? This is like, it's like we know who we are. But to me, it brought me joy to see those people standing in front of a bench or whatever the case may be. The second thing that the radio announcer brought through was that when it comes to your work environment, a lot of times when you're at work, if you've done a great job and a boss sends an email saying, great way to deal with the client, really, really kudos to you, wonderful. That brought people great like joy and happiness, and it just made them feel better. Of course, the bonus they said was wonderful too and very appreciated. So in listening to that the other day, I wondered, okay, what things bring us joy to the point where we're at different levels of joy. It doesn't have to be where something is just bringing you to like, oh my God, this is the best thing that ever happened in your life. And I was thinking to myself that, there are times that you're running around like a crazy person and you are looking for something to eat. And you look in your refrigerator and you're going, okay, I got to do this because I got to get out the door. And you find something and you say, oh my God, that's in there. I mean, it's fresh. Don't worry, it's still fresh, but it's in there and I'm going to eat it. And you eat it and you go, oh, wow, I forgot how much I love that. And it brings you a sense of happiness. But then take it to another level, that night you go out with a group of friends and you're sitting with them and you order a wonderful meal and you've got your friends sitting by you. And the level of happiness that you feel at the joy of that delicious meal and being surrounded by your friends brings you to a place of happiness that is just like you've been renewed for that day and for that evening and probably for the next morning. So it does make you think that even though we read things that say joy is created within, and that's true, we've talked about that. Joy does come from within, but it's not just from within, because as John Donne had said, I believe it was John Donne in his poem, no man is an island. So every single one of us, when we're together, brings a level of happiness and joy to the other one. So yes, we create it from within, but what sustains us is being around other people and further developing those relationships. So it did make me think that sometimes when I'm in a state of, well, I feel like I could be more joyful. And then I get together with friends, or, I go out shopping, which I do love to do. I'm not one that spends a lot of money, but I do love the act of going into a store and looking around and finding a little this and a little that, which sometimes becomes a little bit more this and a little bit more that. But those things give me joy and produce the happiness that I need. So when you listen to what joy and happiness is, joy is more of an internal thing, and happiness is something that we express outward. So if happiness is something that we express outward, then that is where it affects everybody around us, as well as the fact that we get our high off of it. So there was a quote by Victor Hugo, who I believe was a writer of Les Miserables, if you guys, everybody I think knows what Les Miserables is. But this actually was a quote from that show, and it was called, "The greatest of happiness of life is the conviction that we are loved for ourselves, or rather loved in spite of ourselves." And I thought about that, and I said, yes, that is really, really the truth. Because there are times as I'm trying to create my own happiness, maybe trying to create happiness for Ken, my children, for all of each other, that maybe you're not in the best state of mind or the best frame of mind that you could possibly be in, but you want to be loved and you want to pass on that joy and that happiness to others, even in spite of the fact that they may look at you at that particular day and go, oh, wow, I've seen her in a better state. I've seen her, in a more expressive way of joy and happiness. So, that made me think of the fact that how interactive our happiness is with each other. And according to many researchers, they say the strong social relationships are the most important creators of our happiness. And I take that to be true. I absolutely do believe that. So I was reading a few things. I was on my iPad doing my little Google stuff, and I came across things that they talked about that brought people great happiness, and other things that were smaller things that just sustained their happiness. And one of the ones I laughed at, I actually put stars next to it when I wrote it down, because I said, oh, this is me. Going into a store to buy something, going up to the cash register, and you find out that the item is on sale and drastically reduced, right? I'm like, oh yeah, that's me. That brings me the greatest joy. And I will even bring the receipt home and look at it 3 million times going, oh my gosh, this has just made my day. Another one of the things that they were talking about, and again, I had to laugh at it, is when you were younger and you were at school and you made a mistake on your paper and you had a really full functioning eraser that you could erase the mistake with and, write whatever, or, correct yourself. That brought people great joy. So there are levels of joy that we all exist at. And I keep going between joy and happiness, but I really wanted to stay with happiness. There are so many different levels of happiness. It could be for someone who is a more private person, or just likes the quiet more, sitting in the quiet, or just being there, and maybe reading the newspaper. I mean, I don't know if how many people have newspapers anymore, but just doing that act. For someone like me or some of the other people here, it needs to be a situation where you're out and about and you're seeing things and you're interacting with others, but you're also interacting with life. Interactive, that's the word I want to use. And so joy and happiness are different to everybody. Again, as we always say, not a right or wrong. There's no right and wrong how you find your happiness. It's just a matter of what feels right to you. So a couple of days ago, Ken had been away in Florida, and I had said a few weeks ago to my girlfriend, I'm going to be on my own. Do you want to book a bed and breakfast? and just go away. And she said, oh yeah, I'm in, I'm in. I mean, I didn't even have to convince her, I'm in, were her words. So I booked this B&B, and my friend had been ill. She had some things happen over the months that she was feeling a little frightened about, was unwell at the time. And when we got to the bed and breakfast and we were interacting with the innkeeper and everything, this person, my friend, turned to me and said, I feel so happy. All I needed was to see something different, to change the atmosphere around me. And I understood exactly what she was saying, because sometimes when we're in low moods, just going someplace else, even to the grocery store, even to a trip to the grocery store, could be like, you know, this is nice. I got out for a little bit. Sometimes you go into the grocery store, they have tea or coffee there, and it's made your day. For me, I thought about what made me happy while I was away, and it was totally being just me, because I was with another adult, which wasn't a family member that I had to lead through anything or you know, make good or anything else. For me, it was when other people came into that breakfast room, to that B&B, and we started talking, and we were meeting strangers, but becoming connected. That felt like the happiest moments I've had in a long time. I didn't know them. They didn't have any dirt to use against me. They didn't, I mean, I'm just kidding, you know, when I say it that way, but they didn't know my story, where too many of my friends know my story, just like we all know each other's story. So all it was about meeting new people and listening to the things that made them happy, or the things they were going through that made them not so happy, but they were hoping to change. That brought me my happiness on that day. Driving to Pennsylvania, as you can see here with the leaves and the change of the colors, was the most sensational display of colors that I've seen in a long time in open area. And it was just wonderful. That brought me happiness. So the happiness that we get is, again, it doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't even have to be where it's a situation of coming away from that saying that it was earth shaking. It's not about that. It's about those small things in life that make you raise you up and bring you into the light where maybe before you weren't quite in that space. So that was an interesting thing to realize. Now, no disrespect to Ken, but when he goes to play his sports during the week or weeknights, having the remote in my hand by myself to change the channel to my Hallmark channel, which Ken doesn't much love, is my pure happiness, because it's just for me. It's not about anybody else, but it can be about anybody else if I call a friend and say, do you want to come over and watch this Hallmark movie with me? So it is about finding what makes us happy on every scale, small, medium, large, whatever makes you happy. And then sharing that happiness with someone else, even the person that couldn't come and sit in your living room and watch the Hallmark channel, but you call up with tears in your eyes and say, did you see this one this week? It really was just beautiful. So that's how I was kind of developing my thoughts about happiness. Now, the other day we were talking about how sometimes we have two little people sitting on our shoulders. We have the more angelic Lynn, or we have the little devilish Lynn, who isn't really a devil, but maybe a little bit more negative. And they can be in conflict a lot with each other. They're actually like two children playing sometimes, but I see them slapping each other's hands because they're not agreeing with each other. So I thought about that. To stay in my happiness, do I need the angelic Lynn to be the one that I'm looking at, or do I need to have the other one off my shoulder? And it's not about that. It's about letting those two exist, because we've talked about this before. Without those two parts of your character, there is no real way to find the happiness. Because if you're with angelic all the time, you just go like, you know, I don't know that I really believe all of what you've got to say, because the world is not perfect. It is not always happy, or, which I mean surrounding you. There's not always happiness surrounding you. So we can't be in that total euphoria all the time. So the little devil one goes, okay, let me balance this out a little bit. And I thought, okay, so I'm not getting rid of either one of you. I'm going to embrace both of you, and I'm going to hope that both characters can help me as I move through my days and find my happiness. So that was kind of interesting, because I wasn't sure who should actually go. At times I think it should be the devil one that stays, so that I can really tell people what I think of them. Like when the kids haven't called for the last 2 weeks, maybe that one needs to stay there. But we really need both those sides of us to find our happiness. So taking this to a little bit of a lighter side again, which I think, we're trying to find happiness, so we should be light. When they asked little children what brought them happiness, it was really cute. There was like a little, I think it was a YouTube kind of video or something. And they asked little ones that were probably around 5 years old to maybe around 11, 12 years old. And the things that came out of their mouth really showed that relationships and people, even at a young age, are what's meaningful in their happiness. And they were asked, what makes you happy? And one little girl said, friends. Another little person said, having friends over. Another one purely said, little boy just said, mommy. Another one said, as I look at tears in the eyes over here, another one said, going to grandma's house. One little boy said, not having to do homework. And I thought, okay, you're a typical little one. But most of the things that came out of those children's mouths were about connection to other people, were about what relationships did for them. It gave them love, it gave them security, it gave them laughter, it raised them to their true happiness. And you're thinking to yourself, and we've talked about this before, wow, when we were younger, happiness didn't seem like it was such a hard thing to find. It was there. If your mom came to you and said, you've done a really good job cleaning up your room, here's an ice pop, that was pure happiness. You didn't need anything more than that. As we get older, happiness sometimes is a little bit more difficult to find. And of course, again, we say it's created from within, but, and then I go over at my friends, it is created from within, but it is where other people do have an effect on your happiness. So what do we do if those, because I've been in this situation, others are in this situation. What do we do if the things that we want most, that we believe will make us happy, aren't there because of maybe somebody else, the way they're going through their life, which is their right, or what we're doing? So how do we find the happiness? Well, I wish we could be the little kid who said, eating lots of candy and all different types of candy. Wouldn't that be great if we were in our darker moments and all we had to do was go get a bag of candy, and that lifted us to our complete happiness? But I realized that it is where, yes, it is internal, but it cannot stay internal. Happiness has to be given, it has to be taken, and it has to be shared. So I don't have the answers as to how we find that when others around us are maybe in a place that isn't bringing us happiness. But I do know that simple things can bring you one step closer at times, and then having many times or many little snippets of doing this, going here, doing that, can be cumulative to bring us back to a state of happiness. So in saying that, my time of being away was like, and some of you will understand this. We have one car where we are in our apartment, and Ken and I share that, and that's okay, and that's fine. But having my car to just do whatever I wanted and take my 2-hour drive to Pennsylvania, I'm sitting there going, Now, this is pure happiness. I really do love this. Seeing the trees, pure happiness. Being with a friend, happiness. So when we have that sense of that too many things are not making us happy, and that's reality. And it's not where, that's a fix. We can't fix it. Just like we talked about grief. We can't fix grief. Sometimes you just can't fix that part of unhappiness. But what you can do, and spiritual people would say going, bringing light into your life, what you can do is find those moments with people. Pat has a saying that I love, and I'm always listening to her wisdoms. When I have complained, and that's the negative, Lynn, or, been a little bitchy about something, she laughs. Pat will say, go to where you find the love. And if you don't find it there, go to where you find it. And I love that, because when she said it to me, it made me realize that if I'm not finding the happiness with those certain people or events, I need to go to where I find it. It's my right to have love and happiness in my life. If it's not with this situation, then it's got to be with another situation. So I feel like we all save each other from sometimes the unhappiness or the lack of joy, so that we can find our joys and our happinesses. And it's about being together, being with each other, loving each other, going like this to the one that you really don't want to listen to at the time, because in truth, sometimes you do need that little negative voice saying to you, you know what, I'm not going to take this or deal with this because it doesn't serve my higher purpose and my happiness. So goodbye, get lost, that kind of thing. But let's examine the fact that when you're really young and you look and you listen to these things that little children have to say, that they truly know that happiness is really about their peace, their security, the fact that they're surrounded by people who want the best for them. So that's kind of how I looked at that. And I was looking through a book of mine. I had a friend years ago who self-published it's called Awaken the Spirit. Excuse me. And as I'm looking through, different things that are trying to bring me to that thought of happiness and motivation and everything else to always find my happiness. Oh boy. Will the glasses be okay? Excuse me as I switch over. I came across this, and it doesn't directly say, okay, this is happiness, but it lets you understand why we're here and what's going on in our life of finding that joy and happiness. This morning I wake to remember all that I need is free. I open my mind and spirit to welcome the awareness that the universe knows what I need. I open my spiritual arms, welcoming the love and the care that the universe sends me all day. I will keep this awareness in my spiritual mind, letting go of the worry and the responsibility, and only being happy, joyful, and free. And I think when I looked at that, I used to look at her book all the time and just put it away for a little bit and realize that, when you do feel free to be who you are, when you feel free to say, this doesn't make me happy, but this will make me happy, when you go and take a little excursion and you find, you go to the grocery store and you find that they had the bagels the gluten-free bagels that you wanted, that you couldn't find anywhere else, that is happiness. Happiness comes at all levels, and it can be in the simplest of things. But I think what we need to know is to embrace, again, as we talk, the child that says, their happiness is being with a friend, or maybe holding mommy's hands, or skipping down the street, because that's what, as adults, we kind of lose in the midst of our work and our busy days and everything else. So I want to leave you with the fact that find your happiness. It's not that this is anything that you haven't heard before, but find it in different ways and let it become cumulative. I'm saying that word by cumulative. Let it become where little things that make you happy are more consistent so that they raise your energy and happiness resides more than negativity or sadness. And that's what I want to leave you with for today.